Hello, welcome to another episode of Manga Monday. I am Jason Hahn, and today we're talking about One Piece, chapter 1062. Um, Pretty exciting One Piece chapter, picking up right where we left off. New island, new stuff, lots to go over. But again, I am Jason Hahn. I'm a writer for ScreenRant.com. I happen to write a lot of video game related stuff, but I'm a huge manga fan, so we started Manga Mondays to talk about the new chapters of series we love. And today we're focusing on the newest chapter of One Piece. It's officially titled The Adventure in the Land of Science, and a whole lot to cover, including a cover page that has some pretty exciting stuff in it. But I'm not going to do this all alone. Today I've got my buddy Ben with me. How you doing, man?
Doing pretty good and very hyped to talk about this. I mean, I've said before on the podcast, but One Piece is probably my favorite manga of all time. And this chapter just exemplifies why I love it.
Oh, absolutely, man. Well, I'm anxious to hear your thoughts on it. Yeah, as we've said a few times, this is a pretty beefy chapter, but we'll go ahead and just start with the cover story. We got another chapter of Germa 66's Emotionless Excursion. And it actually didn't have any of Sanji's relatives who were recently broken out of Whole Cake Island. Somehow, very luckily, survived a escape from Katakuri and Oven, two of the strongest dudes in the whole One Piece world, thanks to Caesar Clout, helping with some hallucination gas. But we jump over to another part of Whole Cake, which is completely covered in what, well, judging from the black and white and some of the shading, it seems like it's been completely covered in ice. Chocolate Town, I believe, is where Pudding resides. And the only person we know who can completely cover something in ice is the former Admiral Okiji.
Yeah, so it could be hinting at his return, which I'm very excited for because you haven't seen him in a very long time. The last we've really heard of him was when learning about what happened with Punk Hazard. But besides that, I don't think we've seen him in this story at all.
Yeah, I think last time we saw him, Smoker was doing one of his favorite things, losing a fight. And he was about to get killed by Dumb Flamingo, and then Akiji showed up and promptly spanked Dumb Flamingo
Yeah.
before Dressrosa. So yeah, that was all before Dressrosa. So it's been a long time, and really, we're not really sure where this dude's alliances are right now. Like, he clearly has some respect for the Straw Hats and has a moral compass, but what he's doing on Whole Cake is a complete mystery. For the longest time, we've kind of theorized that the Blackbeard pirates have something they desperately need on Whole Cake Island, which is the Poneglyph. But right now, Whole Cake is very vulnerable. The only people there who are, worth the salt was Katakuri and Oven. Everybody else went to help Big Mom and Kaido, and that didn't go well. So poor Whole Cake Island.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I'm curious to see if there will be another cover story following this next week, or if Oda's going to take a break from it for a bit. I think there will be more because if I remember correctly, normally when a cover story ends, it says like final chapter of the cover story.
It
I
seems like a
think.
really weird place for it to just stop too. Like, that's just we've had some very ominous cover pages for the Emotionless Excursion, but this one, I'd say, it feels one of the most ominous.
Yeah.
Just because we don't see the figure, we don't see Akiji. I mean, hell, we don't see any of Germa or really any of the more popular Whole Cake characters. So yeah, very curious to see where that's heading. Just oh boy, everybody in Whole Cake Island has had a bad few months.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, moving on to the full on chapter, we jumped right into the last time we left it. One of the well, declared as call me Dr. Vegapunk, and as we all suspected, it wasn't the Vegapunk.
Well, it kind of is the Vegapunk. It's part
Yeah,
of the Vegapunk.
Yeah, that's something that this chapter kind of revealed was that there are actually six Vegapunk robots, essentially. It's still kind of up in the air if it's like a scenario where Vegapunk broke himself into six different, or if he somehow separated his soul into six different robots, if each one represents a part of him, or if he just created six robots all with a different theme and the original could still, be around. But this one, the one that captured the crew, was apparently named Lilith, and she is the second of six robots, and she is supposed to be the evil one. Each one is themed. There's a logic one. We get a whole really nice chart, actually, in this chapter, which I was surprised that we got it all laid out for us already at that point. But we also met another Vegapunk robot. Luffy and his team ended up running into Vegapunk 6. I don't
Oh, Vegapunk. We Vegapunk Atlas at least.
Atlas, there we go. I was looking for
There's
the name.
there's some discrepancy in numbering because on the chart that CP0 sees, Atlas is labeled as 5, but on their outfit they've got 6. So it's
Right.
so people think that that's going to get like corrected in a volume release, or it could be intentional. Maybe the Alice stole York's clothing or something, or who's to say with Oda? But
Right.
I think it's probably just like a minor mistake.
That would be kind of funny if it's just that's one weird Vegapunk quirk is he's bad with numbers. Like he's
Yeah, the scientist bad with numbers. Yeah.
I mean, he is the world's most well-renowned, I guess, scientist, and that Oda loves to have little quirks like that. So that could be interesting. But yeah, we jumped right into Lilith capturing them, and the Straw Hats that are on the Sunny still are all have a whole range of reactions to this. Of course, Frankie is extremely excited to hear that, oh my god, this is Vegapunk, you're kind of my hero. And Robin and Zoro are both comfortably getting defensive. And just, that's kind of one of my favorite parts of this chapter, actually, is Lilith is all confident that she has captured, she knows that she knows who the Straw Hats are, and she's in her brain, she's thinking, oh yeah, this is a great opportunity. They probably have great treasure and stuff like that. And that's when she gets the logical Vegapunk, the number one Shaka, the good Vegapunk,
Yeah.
calling in and
Oh,
saying, yeah,
It's unclear how logical he is. It's just he's the good. So maybe
yeah,
it's just he doesn't want this to happen because he's the good one. He's using logic to convince Lilith of this, but like I would believe that none of the Vegapunks are logical given One Piece's, characters.
yeah, that would be too boring, right?
Yeah.
Well, with it all being laid out in this chapter, it just stems the conversation of this Vegapunk was already one of the most mysterious figures in the entire series, and even with us finding a little bit more out about him, it's just made more questions about them. I'm incredibly curious to hear about why he invented these six robots, or cyborgs, or we're not even fully sure yet, but these six helpers, as CP0 kind of explains at the end, that Vegapunk felt like he couldn't get enough done, so he created these six helpers. But we're not sure if they legitimately are like part of him. If he somehow, it's been revealed that there are definitely souls in the One Piece universe with like Big Mom's power and Brook's power. So it would be kind of interesting if he somehow like broke his soul into six different pieces, and it's almost like well, not like Naruto, but a lot of people are putting the correlations to pain on how he was able to control six different bodies and stuff like that. And at this point, we don't really know enough if these are legitimately like part of Vegapunk's soul, or if he has just created them and the main body brain is still around. But
Well, if it is a pain situation, at least these, pain bodies have more personality than
Yeah,
pain bodies in Naruto. Um,
absolutely.
but yeah, I think it's important to note that like Lucci himself, like a character in the story, is like, I don't think this is true. I think that this is made up. I don't think he split himself into six people.
Mhm.
So I think it is important that like we are theorizing about this, and there is merit to these theories because even a character in the story is like, this seems kind of suspect.
Which is really odd because Lucci has always been like the just follow orders, don't question orders. I am a tool of the government. I am here to do what they want to do. I'm also kind of an evil son of a bitch because I just like killing things, but it was kind of an odd twist for him to be the one questioning things at the end of this chapter. And even
Yeah.
him acknowledging, saying like, "Wait, the world government wants us to kill the smartest man in the world. That's why would they want us to do that?" And
Yeah.
is
And it would
go ahead.
it would be really cool if we got to see a Lucci Luffy team up if he goes against his masters here. Um, oh, that
Yeah,
would be so good.
yeah, I almost would rather see that than a rematch. As soon as Lucci
Yeah.
and Kaku and everybody else showed up, people were saying, "Oh man, well, of course Luffy's going to be able to just destroy Lucci at this point." I'm like, "Well, yeah, that kind of makes it less exciting, honestly. Like, incredibly excited to see them back in the story. I mean, for me personally, Enies Lobby is my favorite arc in the entire series,
Mm.
just because it just put everyone fought so desperately hard and put everything they had into it, and it was just getting to see all the characters at their toughest, like getting to see everyone pushed to their limit physically and mentally. It was just a smorgasbord for emotional progression and stuff like that. I just don't feel like that is still there with CP0. I am incredibly excited to see like Robin's interaction if they do end up colliding, just because I mean Robin. Anybody who read through or watched Enies Lobby knows that she feared these people so much that she was about to leave the Straw Hats to guarantee the Straw Hat safety because she just feared these people so much. Um,
Well,
but
not just the people, but the power of the world government, like the Buster Call and all that stuff.
yeah,
Like she didn't want the world government to be their enemies because she knows what that entails. Um, because like she wasn't afraid of like Spandam, right? Like she was afraid of what he represented. I think that's the case with these. But like it's important to note that they've risen from CP9 to CP0 even after their failure in Ennie's lobby. So like they must have had some sort of power up since then. Um, maybe they've awakened their zone fruits. Uh, who knows what that would entail, but
right.
could be possible. And
Oh man, I
so
want. I really hope we get to see Kaku's giraffe form again.
yeah, but an awakened giraffe form. See what that entails. Like,
I don't know.
yeah, but
Well, I think because they were there during Mary Joie during the Reverie. Were they
were they?
classified as CP0 then?
Yeah, they've been classified as CP0 since we've seen them after the time skip.
Okay.
Um, but it's interesting because CP0 was also present on Wano, but
Hmm.
that was a different section of CP0.
Yeah, this one, Cyberpole, I can't say this word properly, but
Aegis.
Aegis? Is that how you
Yeah,
say
it's like a
that?
shield. Oh, it's spelled differently than it should be spelled like
Oh,
Aegis, but they probably just spelled it Aigis in
okay.
Japanese.
Yeah, because I know like Kobe, Garp, Helmeppo, and Drake were all part of Sword, which is sort
Yeah.
of the good guy division of the Marines, essentially. Um, and then you have Cyberpole here acting as Shield, so literally the opposite
Yeah,
of
that's a
that.
good point.
Um,
Um,
and so I mean, just we had it previewed a couple chapters ago too that Sword is literally also close to this island too. So it's with Himeppo, and I remember them. Himeppo was begging them to be able to take one of the Seraphim to Egghead Island. No, not
which
Egghead.
is here.
Was it Egghead or no? It was
Yeah, it
to
was Egghead.
no. He wanted to take them. The Seraphim are supposed to be at Egghead, but I think Kobe wanted to go rescue Kobe
He
from
wanted well,
Blackbeard's
what he
island.
wanted well, what he wanted to do was he wanted to go to Egghead to pick up Seraphim to then go fight Blackbeard.
Ah, okay, okay.
Which is why there's the rumblings of like, oh, there's going to be a lot of different factions colliding on Egghead this
Yeah,
arc because we've
absolutely.
got so many different groups that have wanted to interact here. And as I mean, honestly, I'm more hyped for this upcoming arc than I was at the beginning of Wano, which
Hmm.
is saying something. Because I was hyped at the beginning of Wano because it had been the buildup of years, but this, even though this arc's sort of coming out of nowhere, like, huh, we're at Egghead now? That's crazy. Uh, it feels like this is the culmination of years and years of groundwork of just laying out what these factions are in the background, and now we're finally getting to see them collide. And oh, it's just I'm so excited.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, man. Actually, it do feel like this is more exciting than Wano was because yes, Wano was very exciting, especially how much Oda had been hyping up the land of Wano, and we had just had the couple last arcs, all building up to taking down an Emperor of the Sea. Well, this arc is more of a buildup of so many plot lines that have been happening since the beginning of the series. I mean, this is all like end game pieces being put comfortably into the puzzle to form the ending of this series. So
Yeah.
I think I can agree with you. I think I am more excited for what could happen in this arc than I was for Wano. But that's kind of with 2020 in our hindsight as well.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure if you had a time machine and went back just with the purpose of saying like, hey, this next arc after Wano is going to be really exciting, I'd be like, well, I don't know, Wano is super exciting too, but it's just really exciting to see the progression of this series so far, especially with Sword and Shield coming together, and then you have the Straw Hats landing here, Vegapunk apparently being betrayed by the world government here,
Mm.
which again, like I don't understand how the world government keeps making just the worst decisions possible.
Oh,
Especially
when
with
you
they kind of triggered Luffy's year 5 with their decision there too. Like they just keep making all the worst decisions for the benefit of us.
yeah, well, when you get a space laser that can erase your mistakes, you maybe get careless. Uh, but it's interesting because I feel like, this is what in my mind makes the Navy so compelling is that it's made up of so many people who individually are just like nothing, right, to the Straw Hats, and who are incompetent and all this stuff, but like they've got strength in numbers to make up for that. And also, there are individual competent and good people in the Navy.
Mhm.
And the world government, I think, is a similar sort of thing. I mean, the Navy works for the world government. Um, so I feel like, while the five old men may not be the most competent decision makers, I think that Im actually is very threatening and competent behind them. Um,
Oh yeah, he has to be,
Oh yeah, I mean,
or
we don't
they.
know much about him or the five elders or anything like that. So this is kind of like speculation to an extent, but um, it's just I really love how Oda is building these villainous organizations because they feel so different from just the standard. Oh, we've got to fight this one pirate who's super strong. Um, there's a different type of evil.
Oh well, it's like an established evil. It's not some evil
Yeah.
that's trying to, make their way to become the most powerful. This is an evil that has already won and has been in power for hundreds of years,
Yeah.
which is just such a it's not something that happens very often in storytelling. Like I can't think of a whole lot of big series that have done that. And a lot of the ones that have done that have reached like legendary status. I'd say like Star Wars, when it first started, had a very similar sort of thing where the Empire was already in control and you had the small rebels and stuff like that. And it just the way that Oda has been building it, and if we knew more about the world stars, or if we knew more about Eam, then they probably wouldn't be as intimidating. That's definitely contributing to their evilness, and the mystery is the mystery, that we don't know barely anything about them. Which kind of brings me to one of the last panels on this too. Is kind of to stick to our CP0 conversation here. They've apparently been tasked to take this defective Kuma, that has.
Oh wait, is that a is that
Well,
a defective Kuma?
I well,
I interpreted it very differently.
here I'm
As
reading because I remember the fan sub made me think of something else, and then the
so
official translation. So we're supposed to return this giant brat to Egghead. Okay, yeah. So it doesn't say that it was broken. I think the fan translation said that there was something wrong with it, but
okay. Well, that might be. You know, different translations can emphasize different parts of the original meaning. But the way I interpreted it was like they're bringing a Kuma Seraphim to
yeah,
Egghead, which is just insane given that, you know, the Kumas were sort of the pacifistas, right? That was the preliminary Seraphim, right? A bit weaker, but still, you know, that was the big thing. And now we've got sort of a cross between that and the Seraphim. So I'm really excited to see what this thing can do. Yeah, but I'm curious. I didn't know about the broken translation, so maybe that is the case. Maybe it won't actually play that big of a role. Um,
well, that was another big thing about this chapter that was revealed, is that Bonnie revealed that Kuma was her father. And Kuma was a king of, I forget the name of the kingdom, but that would make, the Sorbet kingdom, I believe. So that makes
hmm.
Bonnie a princess. And the Straw Hats are just freaking princess like magnets, man. Um,
Yeah, they get chummy with kid royalty. Um, but yeah, I mean, I'm really like I think I've said before on the podcast, but Kuma is the backstory that I most want to see in the series.
oh, no, I don't think you
Uh,
have.
I think I have when discussing Kuma in the past. I don't know, I forget. But Kuma is the backstory that I most want to see in the series, just because it's been built up for so long, and like it's so tragic just in the present, like seeing him brutalized by the celestial dragons and seeing him like sacrifice himself to save Luffy's crew, like, and also his ties with the revolutionary government, and like, there's just so much there. So like, that's the backstory I'm most excited to see, and I think we are gonna get that in this arc. Or Oda's going to save it for later when we see the Revolutionary Army more, and he's gonna make me sad. But
Well, yeah, especially because the Revolutionary Army is supposedly has the real Kuma, or at least the one that they were
yeah,
able to rescue from the Reverie. So this one isn't the original Kuma, and also, yeah, I mean we haven't seen a pacifista with the black wings yet, and the only seraphim we've seen, which I think seraphim's the plural name for it, so I think seraphs.
yes,
Okay, so seraphs are the individual
uh,
things, so I'll
yeah,
try to.
yeah, a seraph and then plural seraphim. Like it's like the biblical Hebrew pluralizing, which is interesting with when tied to Lilith, who is
Yeah.
Lilith in like Hebrew folklore is like the mother of all demons and things.
Oh yeah,
Um,
and the biblical name Lilith is often not a good good character.
Yeah, but it makes me wonder, was Lilith the one behind the Seraphim? Because
Mm,
she's the mother of all demons, and maybe it's like mother of angels too, but, you know, I don't know. It's
that's
tough
a
to
good
say.
theory. Yeah, I almost wonder like if it kind of we kind of still need to desperately need to know more of Vegapunk's six punk robots, because if each one of them is directly tied to him and they everything that they do he knows about or controls, or if they each have their own personalities and they're like betraying each other and one's trying to be better than the rest. Like it'd be really interesting if that comes true and Lilith is the one that created all the seraphim, and if she was planning on using them to take out all the other punks or something like that. That could be pretty interesting. But all the other seraphim that we've seen so far, a couple chapters ago, it's really just been a couple chapters since these things were introduced. They're all children versions. So I like to think of this version of Kuma, this seraphim of Kuma, is also a childlike version of him. He's just always been a big dude.
Mm.
He's just
Yeah,
a gigantic child.
they do call him a brat, so
Yeah,
it is you'd use that on a kid.
absolutely. Well, yeah, just kind of going through my notes. We kind of jumped around to the end there, but to kind of go back
Uh,
to Bonnie, she just casually brings up, "Oh yeah, I met Sabo, but you probably don't need to know that right now." And I almost like there's nothing else in the panel. It is literally just like her face there. It almost makes me feel like it's actually Oda talking to us, and he's just like, "Oh yeah, I forgot that she was there and she knows a bunch about Saba. Oh, I'll remind you all of that, and we'll bring it back. We'll bring it up later." Um, because it's
yeah,
just so casual.
it's very funny because it is something that Oda likes to do a lot, where he's like, most other stories when having the opportunity to reveal this sort of expositionary info, will just do so. But Oda's like, no, I mean, these characters know this stuff, but there's no real reason for them to say it, so they're not going to say it. And the readers, of course, are like, oh, why? Just tell us. But I think it makes it actually more of a realistic sort of thing because, you know, Bonnie doesn't really have a reason to bring it up because, they're in Vegapunk's domain and everything's crazy. So it's like, oh,
Yeah.
wow, there's a bunch of stuff here. Um, but I do feel like this is sort of like it's unprompted, so it probably is just Oda saying this, like, hold on, readers. She'll reveal it eventually, but there's just so much going on, so I'm gonna do it yet.
Yeah, another interesting thing I thought, and it's something that I think I don't recall another time where it's been brought up, but Bonnie brings up. Well, first of all, they get to a new room, and it's just filled with gigantic sci-fi looking stuff. There's a Star Trek replicator. There's a giant mech fighting a giant monster dragon sort of thing, which ends up being a hologram. But I just love how Oda A is a big nerd, and he's translated that to anytime like Frankie or Chopper or Usopp see a giant robot, they just think it's the coolest thing in the whole world. It's one of my favorite running gags. And of course, this gigantic room has to have a giant robot about to fight a giant monster. And it's I just love how Vegapunk and Frankie and Oda are just such big nerds, and I wonder if we're going to be getting a big kaiju battle, especially with this new punk Atlas, I believe
Hmm.
is the name, can apparently punch light and holograms, which feels like a direct like response to like as soon as I heard that I was just like, oh well, that'd be able to fight Kizaru, the admiral, who is essentially uses light as his devil fruit. So I mean that's kind of curious. It's almost like Vegapunk has it has developed like sort of a way to fight admirals. So I almost wonder if he has like a specific thing for each one of the admirals. And if these will eventually be put in the hands of the Straw Hats, or if Vegapunk becomes an ally of the Straw Hats, it'd be a very important ally, because he just seems so prepared for about anything.
Yeah, I mean, you bring that up, and I think that's a really good point. But also, like the other invention that Alice mentions is Island AC, which controls temperature, which would be good against Aokiji or Akainu potentially. Uh, so I think you're definitely right that they're prepared for any admirals who might come and take them out. So they might have inklings of like, yeah, the government's coming to take me out. Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's definitely going to be easier said than done to take out someone like Vegapunk because they seem pretty powerful so far.
Yeah. Well, and it's just really odd too. I mean, it's just kind of convenient. This might be one of my few gripes with One Piece is we leave Wano and then the Straw Hats just wind up on this island. And it's, of course, the worst place the Straw Hats could wind up for the world government. So, I mean, it's just like the world government should know where Egghead Island is and realize that the potential that the Straw Hats could be there is very high from their journey from Wano.
Well, it's unclear how they can predict the log poses, right? Like, it doesn't seem like there's a rhyme or reason to where the log poses point to after a given island, because the three log poses that were set after Wano went in different directions. So it's like, you can't really predict where the Straw Hats are going to go. They don't really have eyes on the Straw Hats at this point. So,
Yeah, true, true. Well, another thing, it was actually my original point I brought up this room and the holograms and stuff is Bonnie kind of explains holograms to them. And she's like, it's like a comic strip or a fantasy world. And I'm just like, is this the first time that like comics have been uh, acknowledged to exist in this comic?
I could have sworn that there was an earlier reference to comics as well in One Piece. I forget. I could just be making this up, but like I'm pretty sure there was. But I remember seeing it and being like, "Oh, that's funny," because this is a comic.
Yeah.
Uh,
See, there's
but
times, I mean, when you have a series like this where like the variety of powers is so vast, I sometimes get it confused or series confused, and I might be confusing it with a JoJo character because they've
I
definitely
mean,
they've had JoJo characters who are just like, oh yeah, I can make comics come to life, and oh, comics
yeah,
exist in this world. Okay,
yeah, and it's like, I mean, One Piece has 1,062 chapters. A lot of them are very dense, and something like mentioning a comic book is a very one-off joke. So
yeah,
like, it's very hard to keep track of that sort of thing. So
yeah,
if
we're
it was said in the past, it could easily go under the radar, and if it wasn't, then you could easily think that it was because there's so much in it that like uh, it's tough keeping track.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we're nerds, but we're not to the level. We're just like, oh yeah, they brought up comics in chapter 856, panel 4 or something like that. I'm sure
I thought Chapter 856, Panel 4 was actually.
I was going to
I'm
say
kidding.
somebody like that probably exists, but
Yeah, and hats off to them.
oh yeah. Yeah, you if it makes you happy, keep on doing it. But yeah, another thing before we transition to another section of this comic, while we're in this room with Luffy and Bonnie, well, actually, a couple things. I got a couple things on my notes here about it. Vegapunk creating the Star Trek replicator for food was great. I loved that. I mean, that's just the perfect thing that I hope Luffy will make a priority to bring on the ship with him. But I really, really not even want, I need Sanji to judge the food.
Yeah, he'll probably be like, machine-made food, terrible.
Yeah.
Doesn't have the doesn't have the same love that you can put into it as a human.
Yeah, I almost
But at the same,
wonder. Oh, go ahead.
yeah, but at the same time, you might like it because this way no one can go hungry if everyone has one of these items.
Yeah, true.
Um,
Yeah, it was kind of made me remember that some young tech firm was being interviewed by Miyazaki, the guy behind Studio Ghibli, and this this company is working on making like AI art, or trying to make a machine that would make AI art. And they ask him just like, well, what is your like overall goal? Is like, do you want these? Well, we want these machines to be able to draw like people or better than people. And they just show like a small clip of Miyazaki's face reacting to it, and he's just, you almost see like a single tear rolling down his cheek, and on just how like terrible that is. And
Yeah,
I almost
it's
want that
like
for Sanji.
it's like AI generated fiction as well. They're trying to make AI that are able to like write stories and
Mm-hmm.
things. Um, and it's just sort of like a dystopian concept. Like, what does that mean for, AI and fiction? Because a lot of what we associate with like art is what we consider like uniquely human,
Yeah,
right?
personality.
Um, yeah. But like, what does it mean if a robot can replicate that to the point where it's indistinguishable from actual art? Um,
I always
yeah.
connect it to, there's just so many people out there who want to be artists and, want to make a living off of stuff that makes them happy. And the idea that a
Mm.
machine might be able to do it better than you is just very depressing. So,
Yeah, well, automation's one of the biggest things going forward. I mean, this has turned into less of a One Piece discussion, more of an effective technology on society discussion.
oh man, well
But
that's a Vegapunk
uh,
thing. Also bringing
that
up like
is, yeah.
reality in this series, in this chapter.
Yeah, and something I've been curious about is, are there any other people on Egghead Island, or is it just Vegapunk?
Hmm.
Because if there are other people, then it'll be interesting to see whether they're taking advantage of all this technology or if Vegapunk's hoarding it. Um, and if it's just Vegapunk, then uh, I don't know. That also leads to its own sort of bag of worms. But
Oh,
I think it'll be
absolutely.
interesting to see which one it
I
is.
and I absolutely think that will get revealed, and it will probably help us build more of our judgment on Vegapunk as a whole. Because I mean, if there is like people living their lives on Egghead Island, I mean, he brought up consistently in this chapter on, oh yeah, we don't have enough like reliable help or enough money or funding to mass produce this. And that was kind of the whole idea, that he needed to make these six punk robots or cyborgs to help him out, because he can't find reliable help. So my thought
Yeah.
process is, even if there are people on here, he's deemed them, worthless essentially, and possibly is using them for some nefarious purposes, or there is nobody else on the island, and this entire island is just Vegapunk's playground over the years. Yeah, there's just so much we still don't know. We have to meet the other four punks, and that kind of brings up like the number order and stuff, and that's kind of something else that you brought up might get clarified more, especially with that chart that we had at the end there. Is
Mm.
if Vegapunk made these in order, and if he made them as he needed to make them. The first one apparently being the good, the Shaka,
Mhm.
Punk 1, which we got a little panel glimpse of what he could possibly look like. Again, we don't know if this is like the original Punk, or Vegapunk, or if this is just the first one that he created. But I almost like to think that if these are all punks, or if these are all robots that he's created to represent like a different sort of thing of himself, or this idea that he needs, pretty much how he has prioritized these human emotions that these all seem to be based on. And if that is true, my whole thought process here is he may have created this first one, the good one, to keep himself in check. Because we've consistently had throughout the series like Vegapunk creating really cool things, and then also really deadly dangerous things that have been a huge detriment to our heroes and the world in general. So I think
Yeah.
it'd be interesting if he created that first robot to the Shaka the Good, to consistently like keep him in check.
I really like that idea. But the one thing that I don't understand then is why did he make Lilith the evil, right? Like why,
Second.
like to balance out the good influence, maybe. I mean, I sort of view this as, I mean, my theory is that he made them all at the same time. But
Okay.
I really do like that idea of like made good first because he needed that balance because he realized that things were getting too evil. Um, but yeah, I'm excited to see Shaka because I think Shaka gets their name from Shaka Zulu. That's what I mean. That's the only historical figure I can think of with the name Shaka. Because all these are like figures from history or myth, right?
Uh,
Um,
yeah, YouTuber I've brought up a couple times. Dude, I totally respect and does excellent videos. We're not sponsored by him. Would love to have him on the show. Grand Line Review brought up that I think Shaka is like another like name for Buddha or something along those lines,
oh,
where it's just
yeah,
supposed to be like the lot. That's where I got my logical thing from. Where it's supposed to be like the good, the logical, the thinking things out, which is what made him stopping Lilith and being like, keep a look at that swordman. He's confident because he could end you right now from this range. And same thing with Nico Robin. And that was
yeah.
actually another thing that I really like too is all the people that are not terrified right now who are comfortable in the scenario are all people who could handle themselves. Like Sanji, of course, is drooling over the hotness of Lilith, and because I mean he is strong enough to not be afraid by any of this. Same thing with Frankie; he's enamored by Vegapunk, and it's just kind of like we are specifically drawn to Zoro and Robin, just being like we're fine, we can take care of her if we need to. But I think it also says something of Sanji and Frankie's ability too, on how they're not terrified. They're just casually cool with this
Yeah,
scenario.
I think I mean I've said it before and I'll say it again. I think the fact that we know how each of the Straw Hats would react in this situation, they do react that way.
Hmm.
I think that's just a testament to Oda's character writing and how the Straw Hats are all just so well written.
Yeah.
And yeah, I saw someone make a comment the other day saying like, "Oh well, the Straw Hats are basically all the same thing with just like minor quirks distinguishing them." And I was like, oh, I don't think that can be further from the truth
Yeah.
because um, I think that there's so like you can conjure up a situation, you can just picture how each of them would react on their own, and I think that's a sign of a good character.
Yeah,
Um,
I totally agree. I think anybody who thinks that they're all the same, all One Piece characters are the same, haven't really been paying attention.
yeah.
But yeah, another major thing that could spark a whole philosophical debate was Atlas's whole breaking down of reality and stuff like that. It's just like they're saying, "Oh, this hologram isn't real," and then she punches the hologram, and they're like, "Wait, but it's not real." And they're just like, "Well, my whole perception of real is way thrown away from years ago. Like they have a completely different perception of reality, and it kind of goes into like, okay, well, how deep will you want to go down this rabbit hole?" But
Mm.
it's didn't expect to get existential here, and I love it. Just flies over like Luffy and everybody else's head. They're just like, "Oh, that's cool. Look at this machine that makes food. Let's eat this food instead."
Yeah, and I like that Jinbei is the only one that responds because Jinbei actually is intelligent and like,
He's
and
the
I
dad.
yeah, and he's the only one that's like, so who are you then? If what's real is for you to decide, which is a valid question to ask after that sort of philosophical statement.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, it's. Oh, I'm very excited to see where next chapter goes. And I'm very happy we're not on a break because, um, we kind of left off at a cliffhanger where the Straw Hats on Egghead itself just found out that this person's claiming to be Vegapunk, and so how are they going to react further than just shock, you know. Um, so it's exciting. Also, I find it very funny that Luffy, a character who is known for just forgetting everyone's name, is like, Vegapunk, I know that name.
Yeah, that was
It
actually
just shows,
one of my last notes here. He specifically says, "Oh, Vegapunk, Kobe said that name." Is like, how
yeah.
long ago was that? Was that beginning of the series? Because I
I
don't remember.
think it was he was probably referring to when he met up with Kobe later on, because
Where.
he has encountered Kobe like post time skip. I'm pretty sure.
Because I'm trying to think. There would have been Marineford, but I don't know if they actually.
They didn't really interact. He just plowed over.
Yeah, that was kind of a very hectic time in both of their lives. Was Kobe there during Dressrosa?
I think he was. I forget.
Yeah, I
It's
forget.
been so long, but I do think that they've interacted. I mean, maybe it was just Kobe mentioned Vegapunk back in East Blue. We just missed it, or it happened off screen. Maybe we'll get a flashback next chapter of like Luffy with Kobe way back in East Blue, and Kobe's talking about Vegapunk. But I feel like it happened after the time skip. I don't know. Um,
But yeah, if it's something that if it did happen like beginning of the series when he like first met Kobe, I was like, man, have we known about Vegapunk that long? Like I know that he's always been kind of in the background and stuff. I just don't remember specifically when he was first mentioned or brought up. So that's just fascinating to me that with one panel, one line from Luffy, it could potentially be harkening back to 1060 chapters ago, which is
this is
wild.
this is why Oda is Goda, you know.
Oh, absolutely. So yeah, let's see. Was there anything else about this chapter that stood out for you, man? Because that was my notes.
I mean, that's pretty much it for me. Oh, one thing that stood out was that Luffy was going into like Gear Fifth
Yeah,
when he found out the food was a hologram. Like
yeah.
that was super funny. Just like you know, the things that get Luffy into Gear Fifth. Almost dying in battle against Kaido and someone making fake food. Uh,
Oh yeah, like a whole Sunday that you could dive bomb into. Yeah, it's just the idea that like Luffy has gotten to that point where he can just manifest this. Like he has, and it's something that they brought up in the last chapter too. He's just like, Bonnie's just like, hey, I thought your hair was white now. He's like, oh, that's just me when I'm the most free. Like, and seeing that he can just, you know, bring it out at something like that is pretty cool. I'm kind of, I mean, it's still yet to be said, but I'd be kind of glad if it's something that he can just activate. It's not something that is just like, okay, I should use Gear Fifth now. Oh no, it's not
it
working.
it could also be Roger Rabbit rules, where you can only do it if it's funny. Uh,
Oh boy, that would that would be a wrench into into their plans. But yeah, there's not a lot of things Luffy can't beat up even before Gear Fifth. So I mean, he
yeah.
would really only need to use Gear Fifth against the scariest of foes.
Yeah, and keep in mind, Kaido was the strongest
Yeah.
pirate in One Piece. Like that's confirmed. Like there will be characters who will challenge Luffy in other ways, but Kaido was the strongest, and so it took Gear Fifth to take him down for good reason.
Oh boy, will Gear Fifth and about 20 other of the world's strongest dudes hitting him a lot for a long time.
Yeah, and then tossing him into a volcano.
Well, yeah, I don't know if we'll ever see Big Mom and Kaido get out of that volcano because they just seem to be so unstoppable. But yeah, I mean, it took a lot, but it happened. So, but yeah, incredibly excited for next chapter to come out. we're recording this around the time fan subs might be coming out soon. So I'm very excited to see or read those when those are out. But yeah, I think that'll about do it for our Mega Manga Mondays discussion on One Piece Chapter 1062. I hope you'll check out other Mega Manga Monday episodes as well. We talk about different series like Dragon Ball Super, Chainsaw Man, My Hero Academia, Berserk, all kinds of really good stuff. So check that out. Follow us on Twitter for updates at Manga Mondays. And you can listen to all of our podcasts on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, and we have a pretty cool website at www.megamangamondays, all one word, .podbean.com. Also, I, Jason Hahn, have a YouTube channel called Honzy and Friends. I like to stream on Wednesdays and Sundays, and even do a comedic Let's Play video from time to time. But going to be streaming Overwatch 2 this coming weekend, and just recently played some Street Fighter 6 closed beta, so check out some gameplay on that. Also, ScreenRant.com. I do a lot of video game. I've recently started doing reviews, which is very exciting. I've been a video game nerd for most of my life, and being able to finally be a game reviewer is kind of a dream come true. So it's pretty exciting. Check out my work there. But Ben, how about you, man?
Yeah. Well, in terms of recommendations, there's a lot of things to recommend because the new anime season has started. So a lot of good shows out right now. For one that's a bit more under the radar, I think, I recently checked out Blue Lock, and that was a very fun first episode, at least. So I'm looking forward to watching more of that. It's a sports anime. It's a soccer anime.
Okay.
And I went into it expecting it to be like the Haikyuu of soccer. It's very different. It's more like the Squid Game of soccer.
Oh.
So it's very fun, an interesting take on the genre, and so I had a blast watching it. Highly recommend it. I've heard from people who've read the manga that it only gets better from the first episode, so I'm very excited for that. And in terms of plugs, I have a YouTube channel of my own called YGO from Zero, where I go over historical formats of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game. So if that sounds up your alley, definitely check it out.
Absolutely. Well, I'll have links and stuff in our descriptions about that stuff. But yeah, please follow us, and I look forward to the next discussion for One Piece. As Ben said earlier, it is not on break, so we'll be talking about the next chapter of One Piece next week. So look forward to that, and thank you for your time today, and see you on the next one.
Yeah, see you then.
Peace.